Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Maryland Online webinar for today, Inclusive by Choice, a UDL game-based webinar, which is being presented by Wendy Torres. Wendy is the Senior Instructional and Digital Accessibility Specialist at Coppin State University, where she leads initiatives in online learning, instructional technology, and accessibility compliance. With over 20 years of experience in education and a passion for universal design for learning, Wendy is a dedicated advocate for creating inclusive digital environments. She is also a doctoral candidate at Frostburg State University, focusing her research on faculty training and digital accessibility. We would love if you could sign into the chat with your name and institution. And as Wendy presents, please feel free to ask questions or discuss with each other in the chat, and I'll be monitoring that. Thanks, and take it over, Wendy.
Everybody, my name is Wendy Torres. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen with you, but I'm probably just gonna turn my video off just to save some bandwidth, and I have a very bad habit of speaking with my hands. But let me go ahead and just take that off. Sorry about that. Let me just share my screen. All righty, so can you guys see my screen on your end?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. So I'm going to share some resources with you. Let me go ahead and put this in the chat real quick. So all the resources from today's, that is the Zoom one. That's not the one I want.
Oh, and Wendy, we're actually seeing your whole presentation
screen?
with the slides on the left, maybe.
Yeah, I know. That's what I
Okay.
want to see. I'm trying to grab the,
Okay.
I'm actually trying to grab the link. That's what I was trying to grab. So let me go over here, put this in the chat for you real quick. So this will be the resources for everything I'm sharing today. And then I'm going to go to my screen here. All right, now we should have the presentation should be up. All right, everybody. So like I said, my name is Wendy Torres, and today's webinar, I'm going to share with you some easy free tools that you can use to try to create a universal design space for your students. And then I'm also providing you with a template so that you can actually recreate all these things on your own. There's a QR code there if you want to get the materials. That's also that link that I have provided on the screen as well as in the chat. But just real quick about me, just so you know who I am. I have my bachelor's in special education. I have a master's in instructional technology, and I'm currently a doctoral candidate at Frostburg, set to graduate in May 2026 with my ED in education. I am part of the Maryland Technology First Committee, which is a committee here that was trying to establish Maryland as a state that is very well for assistive technology and helping people with that. So I am a part of that. And I have 24 years of teaching experience. But on the screen, you'll see 3 different images of me with my kids at different various stages of their life. And so the reason that accessibility is extremely personal to me is because both of my parents are disabled. I am a special educator by trade, but also my son is autistic. So for me, accessibility is extremely personal because when I talk about digital accessibility, I am thinking about my parents, I'm thinking about my students, I'm thinking about my son. And so on the screen, there's various times with my family and how they've grown. Of course, now they're all taller than me, and they love it and I hate it. But one thing I want you guys to think about as I'm discussing this is think about this quote. I went to a conference, and this is the very first thing that they said about why does accessibility matter. And they said, when you're designing content, who are you okay with excluding? And I remember thinking, well, that is extremely blunt, but it caught everybody off guard in the seminar because they were like, well, wait, I haven't thought of it that way. And he was saying that, when you create content, when you're sharing things with people or you're with your students, they need to be able to access that in a way that they can understand. And if they can't, then it's not accessible and you're being exclusatory. And so, he gave us that quote and I thought about it. I was like, yeah, that is exclusatory, but that question, who are you okay with excluding? Like, as teachers, we should never want to be okay with excluding anyone. So that quote has always stuck with me. It was in 2017 when I heard it, and it still sticks with me. So I start off with that. And I want to talk a little briefly about what is UDL and what does it look like, and then we're going to have some scenarios discussing UDL. So basically, what UDL is, Universal Design for Learning. It's the idea is that you are creating for the people in the margins, so that the people in the margins can benefit, but then everyone around also benefits. So, for example, a universal design space would be a space where you can walk around. It's lower countertops for people who are shorter or anything like that. And so it's more open and easier access. So if we think of physical spaces, we might think of those curb cuts. So those curb cuts were designed for people with mobility issues, but if you're a mother, you're using those for your strollers. Sometimes it's just easier when you're carrying things up there. For example, elevators are actually designed for people with mobility issues. However, how many of us want to go up 4 flights of steps? So the idea is when you design for people in the margins, everyone benefits from it. And so we're going to do a little bit of a practice here, and we're going to see it in practice. So I'm going to present with you some personas, with some personas that might be present in your course. So let me show you my cast of characters here. So we have Dr. Smith, and she's a dedicated, innovative professor who's very dedicated about inclusive learning. And in her class, she's got different students in there. We have Bella, who is a dyslexic student. We have Hannah, who's a non-disabled student. And I'm using the term disabled and non-disabled quite intentionally because disabled is the term that most people in the community prefer, because disability is not a bad thing. It's just a way of being. We can become disabled at any point in our lifetime, whether whether we're born disabled or we become disabled later on in life, either temporary or permanently. So for example, if I break my hand tomorrow, I have temporarily lost use of that hand. It's how can I navigate around? So that is a temporary disability. Whereas my son, who was born autistic, that is a permanent disability. So it's just a way of being. So I'm using those terms quite intentionally because those are the terms that most people in that community prefer. So Hannah's non-disabled. We have Carlos, who's visually impaired, which means he does have some vision, but he's classified as legally blind. So we have Ian, who's a non-disabled student, and we have Katie, who's a student with an anxiety disorder. And then also in the same class, we have Alex, who's a deaf student. We have Dana, who's a student with ADHD. Fiona, who's a non-disabled student. Eli, another non-disabled student. We have Grace, who's a non-disabled student, but she is English as a second language student. And then we have Jack, who's autistic. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at some scenarios about who's excluded if we use certain things in our course. Now, I will say when I do this with my faculty, I usually will give them the copy of the character cards, and I will say, okay, we're going to look at the character cards. We're going to see who's excluded and who's harmed if we do certain things in the course. And so those character cards are available to you, and I'll share that at the end of the presentation. But typically, that's usually what I do with my faculty. I will share these personas, and we talk about who's excluded and who's not. But let's take a look at the different scenarios. So I'm going to give you a classroom challenge, and then we're going to see what choice you would make. Okay, so here's our very first scenario. So we have Dr. Smith, and she wants to upload a video to the learning management system for students to watch as part of the lesson. Now she's got two choices. She could upload the video with captions, and she could upload the video without captions. So if you have an internet-enabled device, we're going to be using that in a second. So you want to get that ready. If you have your phone, you want to be able to have that. Let me go ahead and go to the next slide. So if you have an internet-enabled device, you can just go ahead and scan that QR code and then just select which option you would use. If you were Dr. Smith, would you upload the video with captions or upload the video without? If you don't have a phone, you could just go to slidio.com and then put in the number 3386625. And I'll give you guys a few minutes to make your selections there. So a lot of you are saying 100% for captions. All right. And I'm seeing that you guys are saying, everyone seems to be liking captions. Okay, that's good. All right, well, let's see. A lot of you are picking upload with captions. Well, let's see what happens if Dr. Smith has decided maybe to upload without the captions. So in this case, like I said, if I was showing this to my faculty, I would have the pictures in front of them, or I would be sharing it on my screen. But in this case, I have the pictures in front of you. So this is who's excluded if we choose to use videos without captions. So Alex absolutely is going to be excluded because he's deaf or hard of hearing. He absolutely needs the captions to make sense of the information. However, other people may be also excluded. So in this case, Bella, who is dyslexic, the captions might actually help her understand the information so that she can understand the sound and the letters together. You have Dana, who has ADHD, so that might actually maintain her focus. But then you also have Eli, who isn't disabled, but just prefers to see the captions. That's how he likes to engage with the content. So now that we've talked about that, let me share two quick tools that you can use with captions. And this is a pet peeve of mine with my professors at my university for my doctorate program. They love sharing videos with us, which is wonderful, but a lot of them did not enable the captions on their videos. And so oftentimes I had to use this trick myself to try to get the captions because even though I'm not deaf or hard of hearing, I actually prefer to listen with the captions, particularly if my instructor has an accent or anything like that. It helps me understand. And so for me, it was just my preference. But because I didn't have that accommodation that I absolutely needed the captions, a lot of them didn't enable the captions. And so this is something that I had to do. So depending on what system you have, if you have Google Chrome, you can do this. Google Chrome has a live captioning option that's available in the browser that will allow anything with audio to have captions. So if there's a video that is playing and doesn't have captions, it can have the captions enabled. If it's like a MP3 with like an audio recording, it will also capture that. And this is free on any browser. So it's in your settings and it's the three dots and you just enable those captions. And so let me just pull out of this real quick just to briefly show you what that looks like. So it is in the settings in your Chrome, and then it's under accessibility, and I just turned on live captions. And so when I turn that on, anytime I play any kind of YouTube video, any kind of audio, it will automatically start doing the captions. And I can also decide how big I want the captions and where I want them to be. This is also available if you have Windows 11. Windows 11 will actually have live captions as part of their platform. But because I don't know what kind of platforms you guys are using on in your campuses, I don't know if you're a PC campus or you're a Mac campus or a combination. Since Google is an internet-based thing, this works for anyone who uses it. And you can use the live captions for this. And so I usually will share this with my students. I'm like, hey, just enable that and turn that on. And so this will help in case you have things like where my professor will we'll make the videos and then there are no captions on there. And so I have found this incredibly helpful for me from my perspective. So that's if you want to do it that way. It's a real quick, easy way that you can do it without having to install anything, having to purchase anything or anything like that. But what happens if maybe there's a video you do want to have captions and maybe your institution doesn't have a platform that allows for captions? It depends on your university. For example, at my university, we have Panopto, which does allow us to enable captions and transcripts. And you may have that as part of your learning management system, as part of your school system. But what if you don't? Or what if you leave that university and you don't have access to that tool? Is there a nice free tool that you can use? And so one of the tools that I like to use is a tool called Capwing. And so what Capwing is, it has a whole bunch of different things you can do with video. But what it allows you to do, it allows you to put any video you've put in there, and it allows you to then edit the subtitles and then that way you can create a subtitle version of the video, but you can also do it in different languages as well. And this is a free tool, of course, just like any product. It has free and paid services, but I'm just sharing the free services. So let me just show you what Capwing looks like. So when you go into Capwing, I'm just going to go where it says try a sample. And you do have to have a free account just to try the sample. But if I wanted to do the sample video and I wanted to just upload my subtitles to this, I can literally just click auto subtitles. And this is what I like about it, is that it actually shows me the subtitles right there on the page, and I can edit it right here on the page. If something's wrong, if I need to correct anything on here, I can do it right from here. And then I can simply then decide how I want them to look. I can say, do I want them to look like the default? And I can play it and it'll actually play on there. Do I want to export it in any way? And then what I like about this is that it will then export it into, once I export it, it will have the video with the captions, but then it will also allow me to download a transcript of it. So maybe I have a student who just wants the transcript. They don't want to watch the video. They just want the transcript. It will also provide a transcript of it. And again, this is free. It does have paid services as well, but you can do the same thing with the free version. And you might already have something that does this in your university, but this is just a nice free tool that I like to use in case I'm, leave the university or they have a different platform. And then there's also another tool that I like to use. It's called Streamlabs, and this is also requires a free account, and that's on the website I gave you. But basically what this lets you do is when you upload your video, it will then put all the captions in like a Word document. And all you simply have to do is edit like you're editing a Word document. If you delete something from that Word document, it will delete it from the video. So I don't have to have a lot of skills for editing my videos or anything like that. But what I like about it at the end, when I export it, this is how it looks at the end. It provides a video, it provides a transcript, and then when I play the video, it'll actually highlight where it's reading it and show where it's reading and the transcript. So this output, actually, when I tested it out with screen readers, it actually reads the transcript beautifully. The player is actually accessible. So if somebody needed that extra access, they would be able to benefit from it. So sometimes my students really like this version because the transcript is right there. Are there any questions so far?
No questions in the chat so far, Wendy.
Okay. So those are our two tools. And again, that's on that link that I gave you, and I will return to it at the end of this presentation. But now let's look at the next scenario. So we did the captions. So here's another scenario. So we have Dr. Smith. She assigns a really text-based assignment. So it's a lot of reading involved in this for students to complete individually. And they're only provided in one format. So should they only stick with a traditional text base, so it's just a full thing of text, or should you explore text-to-speech options? So if you're Dr. Smith, which one should you do? Or would you do if this was you? Would you just use the traditional base, just a bunch of wall of text? Or would you try to maybe look at text-to-speech? Which one do you think you might utilize?
Wendy, we have a comment in the chat that both options here say the same thing.
They know. Oh, you are right. I apologize. That is my user error. Thank you for letting me know that. I didn't even realize that when I created, I actually forgot to put both. I apologize. Thank you for letting me know that. So we'll just go ahead and skip that. So thank you for that. So in this case, if you stick with the text, like it's only text, here's who's excluded. And again, when I would do this with my faculty, I would actually ask them, let's look at our characters and who's excluded, who might this be harming, and we don't intend it to harm. And so, for example, Bella for sure is going to be the first person that's going to be affected by this. Because of her disability, intense text is going to be very hard for her to read. Not that she can't, it's just going to take an incredible amount of mental energy and effort to try to understand that information. And so if it's a very dense text and it's like 10 pages long, it's going to take her a good amount of time just to get to that first page. And so by the time she gets to the 10th page, she's already mentally exhausted. And then so how is she supposed to show you what she's mastered and learned when she's extended so much energy just trying to get to the information? But then you also have someone like Jack, who might see all that text and just instantly have anxiety just because of it and not know where to start. So for example, my son does this. If you give him a bunch of text, he looks at it and goes, And it's not because he can't read it. It's because all he's thinking is that's a lot of information for me to remember. You have Dana who has ADHD. She has problems focusing, so she might need some chunking or scaffolding. Grace, who's an English as a second language student, she's not disabled, but she's English as a second language student. So it might be very hard for her to like kind of remember all that language and trying to remember what it's doing. I know for me as an English as a second language speaker, I tend to translate in my head. So as I'm reading it, when I was learning English, I was translating it into Spanish. So that also takes a good amount of mental energy. But you also have Fiona who just might not like she might be able to read fine, but she might just be that student who is, I just want to hear it so I can learn. You might have that student who wants to hear it and see it read at the same time. And so if you have that, I'm going to share a text-to-speech tool that you can use. And again, it's all these tools that I'm sharing with you are free. But these are tools that I've actually shared with my students. So I've had students who've come in, they've asked, and they said, I don't know where to find it, or they've stated things like, I can't afford a big program like Dragon because it's so expensive. And so I would share these tools with my students. So this tool that I'm going to share with you is called Natural Reader. It's a web-based product. It also can be on an app. And what it allows you to do, it allows you to put any text and it'll read it out loud to you. So let me go ahead and share that with you. So in this case, this is what Natural Reader comes in. And so this is the generic stuff that comes in here. But you can type whatever kind of text you want. You can upload your own document to this, and you can select different voices that you like for reading for this. So if I played her, it would start reading it and it would start saying it out loud. I can then decide if I want to change how it looks or how I engage with the content. So if I wanted it to be a different font, if I wanted to pronounce certain things, if I wanted to save it, if I prefer dark mode, which I actually do prefer dark mode to this, I could do that. What I like about this, it doesn't require any technical know-how. All they have to do is copy and paste whatever it is in here, and it will actually read it out loud to them. There again, just like anything on the internet, it does have a paid feature, but I've never had a student who's actually used the paid feature. They actually did everything they needed to do just from the free browser version. I had a student who had an intellectual disability, and so he had a lot of hard time with reading, and this is exactly how he did his work. He would actually copy and paste whatever was in the learning management system. He would put it right into Natural Reader, and it would read it out loud to him, so then he would vocalize what he understood, because the act of writing and typing was very hard for him. But if you asked him what it said, if he heard it, he could repeat it back to you. And what I like about this, again, free, you're seeing a pattern here, is that this is free, and then they can decide how they engage with it. But it's not changing your content anyway. It's just making it easier for them to understand it. And maybe you already have something that does this in your learning management system. I'm just providing you a tool in case you don't have this in your learning management system. So for example, in our school, we have Immersive Reader that's built into Microsoft products, and we also have a tool called Anthology Ally, which will read it out loud to us. But again, what if the student doesn't have access to it, or they leave? Did you have a question?
No, I think we're good on that. I think that was a mistake, but we did have a question going back to captioning.
Yeah.
The Nina Craven writes, in the captioning tool, some of the caption styles visible looked not very accessible. I think that may be referring to Capwing. And asks, are there guidelines about how to choose caption styles so they're not visually distracting and have enough contrast?
Yes, very good question. So with Capwing, yes, you can make it a little bit more funky and everything else, but in all honesty, we really don't want it to be more funky because that's actually very difficult for a number of people to read and understand. Like, it looks cool, but it's not gonna achieve what you wanted to achieve. So typically with this one, I typically just use the basic one, which is just the default, where it's just a standard white and black on there. because it can be very distracting. And also for someone who is deaf or hard of hearing, that's also very difficult to understand. And so they don't like that. Now for Streamlabs, when you play it, it's actually black on white that you can do. And then you can decide if you want it on there as well. But that just gives you the transcript for this one on this one. But yeah, it's a good question. So the answer is always go for the best contrast, black on white, or anything like that. Avoid extra colors or extra effects. Like, it looks cool, but if you're trying to convey a message and information, it actually is very distracting, and it actually is very difficult for a number of people to understand, not just people who are deaf or hard of hearing. Like, if I'm dyslexic, that's going to be very difficult to follow along with all those funky fonts as well. Thank you. Are there any other questions?
None in the chat.
Okay, great. Okay, so now we can go to our third option. So we have Dr. Smith is selecting course materials to distribute to her students digitally. And what should she do? Should she provide all her course materials as PDF documents, or should she offer course materials in multiple formats? So let's see what you guys would pick. Okay, I did this slide correctly. All right. I see some PDFs. I see some multiple formats. Good, okay. All right, and now here's the thing. So this quote is a quote that I got from one of my blind friends, and I told her I loved it so much I was going to use it in every presentation I did. And she said that PDF should stand for pretty disappointing format. And the reason for that is PDFs, while they're very useful because everybody has a PDF reader, it's an easy way to distribute files. The problem with PDFs is the number of people have problems with them. If you're visually impaired or blind and you're using a screen reader, if that PDF is not made correctly, the reader will do one or two things. It will either open it up and just say document, which is useless if I'm supposed to read the information in the document, or it won't read the content at all. And so that's very difficult. If you're dyslexic, again, it will not read it out loud if it's not correctly formatted. If I like to have the fonts a different way or to make it bigger, I can't do that with a PDF. And if it's not made correctly, sometimes if it's a lot of information in that PDF, I can't skip around it if it's not structured correctly. And so Bella would have a problem with it. Jack might have a problem with it. Carlos might have a problem. And Grace and Dana might find it difficult. Well, PDFs, we use them all the time. Like, they're so easy to do, right? Everybody wants to use them. They're the easiest way to kind of get our students information, but they're not always as accessible. So what happens if you have a file that you want to share with your students, but you really do not want to put it as a Word document or a PowerPoint? You don't want the students to be able to change it in any way or do anything, but you want to make it as accessible as possible. So what I'm going to share with you today, this is a tool called, we have a tool on campus called Anthology Ally, which is part of our learning management system, where if our faculty put anything in the learning management system, it will generate alternative formats for our students to download. So alternative formats could be like MP3s or electronic braille or speech to text or translated text. And it will generate these alternative formats. Now, because it is part of our learning management system, instructors can then look and see, how accessible that content is, and they can correct it so that those alternative formats are like the best possible. But what happens if your institution doesn't have that? Like, that is a paid feature. So what happens if your institution doesn't have that, or you have a student who's requested a document or a file in a different format, or maybe you're presenting at a conference and they're asking you to provide different ways to get this information. So what Anthology did is they created a free version of this tool that's online. So let me go ahead and share that with you. And this is what it looks like. Let me just put that in the chat too, so you guys have it. If I can get in the chat, would be nice. Okay, see if I can put in the chat for everyone. Okay, so what this is a free web-based thing. So this what this allows you to do, it allows you to take any file, Excel file, PDF, Word document, things that we might be sharing with our students, PowerPoint. And so what allows you to do, allows you to grab that particular file, whatever that file might be. And then what it's going to try to do, it's going to try to provide you with the best possible alternative format for that. It's going to give you different choices depending on what kind of file you put in. And it's going to try to give you like the best version of it. So it won't give you the nice score. So it won't give you the nice score or anything that comes with it, or kind of explains how you can fix it. But it will at least provide you with some options that you can download to share with your students. So I had a professor who didn't have this on their as a learning management system, and so they wanted to provide their students with different ways to engage with the content, different ways for them to engage with that in materials. And so they used this, they literally uploaded whatever it was. And then these are the different alternative formats that I could then download and upload to my learning management system or share on a website if I wanted to do that. Again, it won't tell me the score, it won't tell me how to fix it, but it will try to give me the best alternative format, the best possible format that it can give me. To try to help my students. And so I had a professor who didn't have Ally, and this is exactly what she did. So she was trying to do universal design for learning in her class. And so she wanted to provide different ways for her students to be able to get this information. She didn't have a lot of time on her hands to try to remediate all these things. So she would just upload it here. And like she uploaded her syllabus, and then she downloaded an MP3 of the syllabus and uploaded it to the learning management system. And sure enough, she had a couple of students who actually preferred that method. I wouldn't want to listen to my syllabus as a MP3, but some students might. But it does give you different options that they can select from, that they can choose depending on what that looks like. Are there any questions so far?
Nothing in the chat right now.
Okay. And again, you'll see there's a theme here. I like free because we are educators. So let's go to our next scenario. So we have Dr. Smith, and she takes her students to a school assembly as a guest speaker, and they're delivering a really important information. And so she records it and she uploads it, and she actually does, she uploads it for review, but she notices that a lot of the attendees struggle to follow along in real time, and others miss points while watching the video later. So she recorded it and then she uploaded it. So this does happen a lot in our courses. We have guest speakers, we record it so our students can go back to review. So she has two options. She could rely solely on the video captions, so she could definitely upload the video with the captions, or she could also provide a transcript to the video. So let's see, what do you think you guys would do? If you were Dr. Smith, which one do you think you would do? All right, so a lot of you are saying provide a caption in addition to the captions. So captions are definitely useful. And again, if I was sharing this with my faculty, I would ask them, okay, well, who would be excluded if I don't use those transcripts? And captions are super, super helpful for a number of people, but they're also not always the best for everything. So sometimes captions really do work. very well. So for example, Carlos, who's visually impaired, he might actually prefer the transcript because the transcript, he can use his screen reader to read it and it will read it out loud to him so he knows exactly what he's missing. For Graves and Katie and Hannah, they might also like that written communication to better understand it. So for example, what if you have a presentation and there's a lot of information and you're afraid you're going to miss something? How do you do a transcript, or how do you do a transcript after the fact, right? So this is a tool that I have shared with my students, and then this is also a tool that I have also used. So the tool that I used was a free tool that allows me to, it's called Web Captioner. And then what it allows me to do, it allows me to just turn on captioning on my browser, and then I could minimize it if I want to, keep it open if I want to, what have you. And as I'm speaking, it's collecting what I'm saying. And then I can then save it as a text file or a Word document so I can edit it later if I wanted to. And I could do it in different languages. And the reason this was helpful, we had the Attorney Journal come for COP, and we were talking about podcasting, and they were telling us like the legal ramifications of things, right? So I wanted to make sure I got the information, but she is throwing out all this legal jargon and information, and I'm trying to make sure that I'm getting everything. So I literally put that on. I just had the web captioner on. She was speaking like she normally did, and then when she was done, I just saved it as a text file, and then I could go back to review it. And so this is something that I share with my students as well, and let me share that with you, show you how it works. So it's called Web Captioner, and like I said, this is free. Again, like everything on the internet, it does have an option where you can pay for things, but I've never had to pay for what I need for the captions. You can make an account if you want to, but you don't have to. So in this case, if I wanted to just start captioning, I could just click on Start Captioning. And as I'm speaking, it will start grabbing what I'm saying. I could minimize this if I wanted to, and it will continue to capture what I'm saying. And then I can also change how it looks. So if I don't like the way it looks, or if I want it to be a different font, I can change that. And I can also do it in a different language. So if I wanted to, I could change this to Spanish and speak in Spanish. And it would also capture it in Spanish. But let's say I stop captioning. If I wanted to save it, all I have to do is click on this little save icon here, and it's going to give me two options. Save it as a text file, which is just your text without any formatting, or save it as a Word document. And so I typically like to save it as a Word document, but this is a great tool that you can use for your students. If you are giving a lecture and you want to record the transcript, you can just have that playing while you're giving the lecture and then upload it to your learning management system after the fact so students can review it. If you have a student who has problems with note taking, maybe they physically can't write notes, or maybe they need to just maintain their focus on you and can't write the notes, this is a good way to capture information. When I was in college, I was the note taker for one of my friends. She was deaf or hard of hearing, so she had an interpreter who came to class and would interpret the lecture. Well, obviously she's looking at the interpreter. She couldn't write her notes. So at that time, I'm kind of dating myself here, we used the triplicate form. So it was like a form that I wrote the notes. So she got one version, one part of it. I got the other part. And then the accessibility office got the third. We've gotten a lot better since then, but this would have been extremely beneficial for her because she could have just put this on her computer, had the information, and she could have gone back to review her notes. And again, this is free. And I've used it multiple times with my students because I do have students who just prefer that. They just prefer the transcript. And I give that to them. And I've actually heard from a lot of my students who say that they use this outside of my class as well, that they've used it in other classes as well and have found it useful. Any questions so far?
I think we're good.
Okay, just making sure. All right, so this brings us to I think our last scenario. So it's so Dr. Smith wants her students to submit their assignments to demonstrate their learning and understanding. Does she A, require all the students to submit the same kind of assignment, like everybody must write a written essay? Or does she allow students to choose from multiple formats, including a paper, an infographic, a multimedia presentation, or a recording? So which one would you choose? All right, so a lot of you are saying multiple formats.
We have a comment that says, depends on what the assignment is measuring.
That's true. What is the assignment measuring? I mean, if it's something that's required for licensure, that's kind of standard. You have to actually do that. That's very true, yes. So assuming that this is an assignment where you could have a little flexibility, like it's not something that would be like for licensures, there's specific tests that they have to take. They have to take that. That's just part of what's required. Or there is something that's required within that portfolio that they have to submit as part of their artifacts for their graduating. So for example, for my doctorate, it has to be a dissertation. I can't do an infographic for that. So yes, you're absolutely correct for that. So assuming you have some flexibility for that, what could you do? And the reason I say that is because one size doesn't always fit all. So what works for one person is not going to always work for another person. So someone might be a really good test taker. Like you say test and they can understand that. You might have a student who knows everything in class and they're on their game. The minute you say the word test or quiz, they get test anxiety and they lose all the information. But if you ask them after the test, they know it. Or it could be just somebody who expresses it in a different way. And so if you're able to, again, if the assignment allows you to be able to provide some flexibility, you could provide some flexibility where everybody has to answer specific questions, but maybe the way that they share it with you might be different. So I do that with my students a lot. I will give them choices. I'll say, okay, you have to pick one of these 3 prompts, and how you answer it is up to you, but you have to address these specific questions. So I need to see these answered questions somehow in your presentation, however it is. They usually have a rubric that, shows, did you actually answer the questions I was asking? And so the reason I share that is because we want to think about not every student is going to be a great writer. Not every student is going to be great with videos. You're going to have those students that are just amazing with it and will blow you away because they're just amazing with it. But then you'll have some students that really will struggle. So for example, I'm a very good writer, but it takes me a really long time to write. So I'm always rethinking it and re-editing. And so it's a very time-consuming thing for me to write. Whereas I'm very good with computers, so I might be able to do a presentation or in a different way that's easier for me than writing an essay. But I would still have to show you what I know. Like I still have to show mastery of the content. And so the tool I'm going to share with you is, well, what happens if you want to try that and maybe you get writer's block and you're not sure what options to give them or how to adapt it to a specific age group, or maybe you just need a little bit of assistance with that. And so there's a tool called Magic School AI. It's designed for teachers. And so it's a free tool that allows you to do all kinds of different things for teaching. And some of them may not be for higher ed. Some of them might be for K through 12. But there's a lot of options that Magic School AI has. And so Magic School AI has a couple of tools built in. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So again, this is a free tool, and they have a ton of different tools. So if I clicked on teacher tools, it's going to give me every tool that they have in here. In this case, I just want to go to my favorites. But they have this cool tool called a choice board, which allows you to try to figure out like, what options do you want to give this particular students to show how they know? And I can design, the grade level. So if I don't want it 9th grade, if I want it to be higher than that, if I want it to be university level, or professional staff, I can say university. I can type in my goals. I can put in my syllabus if I wanted to, or anything like that, or any additional information. And based on what I write in here, it will then provide me age-appropriate choices for that range that I've put in that I can then give to my students. So if I'm saying I want this to be at university level, the choices that it's going to give me for that prompt and whatever I've written in there are going to be on the university level. And then I can then take that and I can copy and paste it into my learning management system if I want to. I can tweak it if I don't like the wording. I don't have to be tied to it. It's not like I have to use it. It might be just to get my ideas together. Like, oh, okay, maybe I want to do it this way. Your learning management system might already do this. We have we have Ultra, I'm sorry. We have Blackboard Ultra, and Blackboard Ultra has AI where it allows you to do these prompts to kind of engage with your students to make them think. But what if you don't have that? Or maybe, like I said, you get like me, you get writer's block and you're trying to come up with different ideas, but you really want to make sure that it's rigorous because you don't want them, doing something that's simple because that's not what we want. We want to show that they've mastered it, but we also want to show some rigor, that they had some time and thought to this. And you can do this. And again, this is a free tool that you can use. It has multiple things that you can do. And these are a couple of the extra bonuses that are in here that you could use. They do have a text leveler. So if you have somebody who might be reading on a lower level, but they want, like, maybe it's an article, you could put the article in there and it would make it at that specific level so they understand it. That was particularly helpful for my student who had an intellectual disability because he needed to be broken down in simpler terms for him to understand it. He could definitely tell you what it meant afterwards, but when I used that big vocabulary, it was hard for him to understand. And so when I made it in simpler terms, he was like, oh yeah, I know what this means. You can do a scaffolder. So a scaffolder breaks it up in different chunks depending on that student, if they need that information broken down. It does it with text as well. So if you have a text and large bunch of text, how do you chunk it up? And that clear direction, so like that clear, simple language, that is useful for people who are neurodiverse. So they have ADHD, autism, Tourette's, Down syndrome, and the intellectual disability. That simple language helps because it breaks down that barrier to the communication, but it keeps your instructions. Because sometimes I've struggled with that. Like, it makes sense to me when I say it, but then when a student, lets me know, hey, I don't understand what you're saying, I have to like break it down, like, oh, okay, I have to go backwards and think and make it. So those are some tools. And again, these are all free for you. And then also now what I want to share with you, let me go over here. So I did share this link in the chat. And so on this particular link are all the resources that I've shared. There is the UDL guidelines, which is the actual graphic organizer that actually explains how to use UDL. There is a Microsoft Google Forms version of this game. So if you wanted to give like a Google Forms, like what would you do? How would you do it with the same kind of characters? It's on there. But that information that I've shared with you is on there. Towards the bottom of this particular thing, I'm going to scroll slowly. There is an option where you can also create your own version of this. So on here, this is your own. I use a tool called Book Creator. And this is what it looks like. So this is a tool called Book Creator. It's one of the very few tools that I have found that is actually accessible to Web 2.0 too. And I've used it a lot in multiple presentations. It uses a lot of universal design principles, like it allows students to type the information, speech to text, different verbal things. It works with keyboard navigation. It works with screen readers. And so if you wanted to, you could just click on remix this book and it would ask you to make a free account. So you get a free account as an instructor. You get 2 libraries with 40 books each. There's no limit to the number of pages you can have in the book. And then if you wanted more, then you could get the paid subscription. But that's 80 books right there that you have for free. But this is the way it would look. And so in this case, this was a game version that I did of this presentation. And so on this presentation, I have like different slides. You'll see those characters that I shared with you. And then there are different options. So depending on the option that you select, it will take you to, like I'll share in here, but then it also will take you to the tools with the hyperlinks and the videos in here. But I also provided some like bonuses, things that I didn't share with you in this presentation. And this is completely adaptable. You can tweak it any way you want, use it any way that works best for you, and go from there. So I can go to the different scenarios here if I wanted to, and I can do that. It gives me different options, different free tools that I can use. I can customize that. I can use it as is. And also on that page, there is also a link to a Google Drive. So perhaps you don't want to do the Book Creator. Maybe you want to do a non-technical way of doing this. So maybe it's a conference and you don't have access to a computer and you want to just maybe do this idea. I've done this without any tech. So we had an event on campus. We were talking about accessibility. And so I had those character cards on paper and we had scenarios that they had to go through. And they would select, okay, circle who you think's being excluded and why, just to kind of get them thinking about it. And this didn't require any technology, it just required some paper. And so I've provided the scenarios in here in case you wanted those. You can use them and tweak them. I provided the PowerPoint. If you want to tweak this PowerPoint, I provided the facilitator instructions. So if you wanted to do it without tech, how you would do it, with tech, how you would do it. And then I've also provided those character cards, because maybe you like the idea of the characters, but maybe you want to give them different personalities or profiles. Maybe they have different disabilities or different things that they're presenting in class. You can do this, because typically when I did this with my faculty, I would have the cards and I'd be like, okay, let's select. And so you can make this as interactive as you want. And there's also a game template, like if you just like the way it looks and add your own, it's also in there. But that's again provided for you. You can tweak it, use it in any way that you like that helps you, because we are teachers and we all like to share. So do we have any questions for me or anything that I need to review or anything I can help with?
Well, while people are thinking about any other questions they may have, I'll just call out the comment by Carla who said, if a student likes to speak, they could use speech to text. So that was posted when you were talking about providing different options for the students' assignments, and just
Yes.
calling out that they could also use some of the tools that you had presented as tools for teachers.
Yep, the speech to text is a wonderful tool. My son uses that all the time. If you ask him to physically write, you're going to get 2 sentences. If you ask him to type, you might get a paragraph because he types like this. You ask him to do speech to text, he's giving you a novel. Because for him, if you ask him, oh, he'll tell you exactly what it is, but the act of physically writing is hard for him because he also has dysgraphia. So his handwriting, even though he's in high school, looks like he's in 1st grade. So he's embarrassed by that. And then he's not a very good typer, but you give him speech to text, he's telling you all day. And these will be available as long as you want them. I won't take them down.
And I'm going to give people another moment to think. And while they do that, I'm going to share the completion certificate. So if you need this for professional development for work, you can take a screenshot and show that you've attended.
And again, feel free to share the tools, use them. If you want to use anything in the Google Drive, go ahead. It is Creatively Commons licensed, tweak it, make it your own, because when we're teachers, we don't steal, we just borrow, we just don't give it back.
I see some thank yous in the chat. No further questions right now, but people are really appreciative of the tools and your generous sharing of all your materials.
Wendy, I have a question.
Mhm.
Are you going to be in Frostburg anytime soon?
I will be there on May to graduate, but you know.
I'm from Garrett College, so
Nice.
we may need someone to come in and present, and I was just wondering if you'd be in the area.
Well, I mean, I can be. I do present with the other local schools, so I'll either, if it's locally, I'll just go there. If it's out of state, I'll just, I usually do it virtual. But yeah, I can. So let me put my contact information in the chat and feel free
That's
to
what
reach
I was
out to
hoping
me.
for. Yep.
Works for me. Because I do adapt this for faculty and I try to make it as engaging as possible in different ways. Because our faculty are struggling with it as well. So I'm trying to give them things that allow them to teach without having to worry about, oh my God, now it's another thing I have to know. Oh, you're on mute, Sarah.
Thank you. I was saying I don't see any further questions, so I think we will wrap up. Again, thank you very much, Wendy, and thanks to all our attendees.
Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day.